leaders in organizations who face intercultural challenge. So what our topic today is working with multicultural team, challenge and solution. I don't know if I have a lot of solutions, but I would like at the end of the session, maybe you can ask yourself the good question when you are working with teams. So I will try to develop this kind of, okay, how I need to be aware when I am working with multicultural team, what will be our solution as the team in this context of us in a project or working together. So I will give you some tips, but I don't know, the solution is you that you need to found in your context with your people. So a little think about me, maybe. As you see, my Spanish accent is very strong. I come from Chile. I was born and grew up in Chile. And after, I have two countries in here that shape a lot of my identity, what I am today. I live in Switzerland for a long time. I have a Swiss husband. But we are a multicultural family because we spend a lot of time in Brazil, and I have one of my sons was born in Brazil, so here we have a mix of languages, mindset, and everything. And this is, I think, the three cultures that shape my personality or my identity today. My first career, professional career, was in the finance sector. I am an economist from professional background. I worked for a long time in finance, and actually with my experience to living and working in different countries, I became very aware about the intercultural thing. So I discovered this field of interculturality. I became passionate about. I started to work with the people who face intercultural challenge at work, leading multicultural people, negotiating with other cultures, all this aspect that the cultural aspect have an influence in the way we work together. So I have been working in this field for more than 15 years, and yeah, with individual leaders and team. And also I am a coach, so I combine very well this kind of training and coaching, because the training training gives you the awareness, the learning, but sometimes they don't pass the change. And if you want to create new things, or we want the people or the organization change, you need to have the how to do that. And for me, coaching is a good tool to create and make change in companies and person. So we have a pool. We start with the third question. Regarding multicultural team, what is your current situation? I am part of a multicultural team face-to-face, member face-to-face. I am member of a multicultural team at distance. I am a multicultural team leader, or I don't belong to any multicultural team.
Yeah, the poll is on, you can see it.
Yeah.
Could you explain what you mean by I'm a multicultural team leader? Do you mean that we lead a team that is multicultural? Or that we are multicultural and we are in a leadership?
Yeah, maybe it's important to define what is a multicultural team. Multicultural team is people from different cultural background, even diverse. For example, you can have generation, and cultural we can speak more abroad kind of culture. So you can have people with different cultural background or different generation, different gender in the same space at the same time. This is important. So the same thing could be online time, online space, or physical space at the same time, interact at the same time. I don't know if okay.
When we have zero, I do not belong to any multicultural team, because nowadays everything is multicultural. Exactly.
I don't see the answer. Is the people
Yeah.
answering?
Did everybody answer? I think 9 of 11. I think 2 people didn't participate. 9 of 11. If they wish just to click, we will give it, I don't know, 10 seconds more. If
Yeah.
not, then I will. Yeah. Maybe some people participate on mobile devices and it's so convenient, not so convenient to answer. But I can finish it and maybe not to spend my time and full. Yeah. So share results.
Yeah. Can you see the answers?
I just clicked share results. Can you see them?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically 56. Yeah.
Fantastic. Member of the multicultural team. I am a cultural team leader. Fantastic. Okay. So let's continue.
Okay.
Perfect. So, what are the challenges at the moment? Can you put in the chat? What are your challenges at the moment in dealing with multicultural teams? What's your main challenge or big challenge? If you can write in the chat. And maybe Anna, you can, or Natalia, you can say what the people is.
Yeah, we shared it in the chat, so please feel free to communicate your answers and share your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Oh, I will close this. Okay. So, what is the difference, or what is the challenge in a team when we talk about homogeneous team, multicultural team? So we have this kind of graphic. We have the performance, productivity, and after we have this two-command way how the team is developing from forming to performing in the time. And when we work with homogeneous team and they are well managed, in general, the productivity at the beginning is high or start to be high in the short time, because the people know each other in terms to understand the code, the context, have known experiences and behavior. So they can work better at the beginning. But after, start to create a kind of inertia in the relation and bring ideas, because the people stay in the comfort zone. If they are not somebody challenged, homogeneous team tend to have a more stable relation, productivity, and can be in a comfort zone. What happened with multicultural team, they are not well managed. At the beginning, different as they have the gap between homogeneous and multicultural team, because the multicultural team, they don't know each other, they don't understand the code of the others, they don't understand maybe the context or the approach the context or the approach the different way. So this kind of the settling or start to know each other take time. This is the reason why at the beginning probably the performance is slower than the homogeneous team, and it takes time. So if the multicultural team is not well managed, could be more problematic for the organization than the benefits that a multicultural team well managed. Because if we cannot be aware what is the need of the member of the team, what is the behavior, what is the value behind that, how approach work or approach project, or approach objective, create a kind of misunderstanding, lack of communication, a lot of problems that don't contribute to the productivity of performance of the team. But on the other hand, so we have maybe this gap is bigger in time of time, in time of productivity. So, but if we have multicultural team, well managed, at the beginning start lower than the homogeneous team for the reason that I mentioned before, but after, if they're well managed, you can have better performance because you are creating a connection of different views, different perspectives, different way to do things, help to the project and enrich the project and the company, or the organization, because they become more creative. You can take from the best of each one to create more creativity, innovation, and to give more performance. And the gap there with homogeneous team is better, is bigger. So when we have homogeneous team, in general, the people convert quickly to solution because they know each other, they understand the questions, so the solution came easily. They reach agreement without taking all factors in account because we focus more in homogeneous aspect to think. They tend to have similar vision of things, different view can be excluded because they're not comfortable. They take out of our comfort zone, and maybe this new idea could be rejected or seen as a menace. The seeking information, they have a lack of vision of opportunity in the long term. But when we have multicultural team or diverse team, I would like you to think also, because today diversity is part of the agenda or the wish of the organization to have diverse people in companies. So culture you can associate with cultural background like nationalities, but also cultural background as generation, gender, all this kind of diversity that you can find in the organization. So this is a multicultural or diverse team perform well in complex tasks because they observe from different perspectives and angles. They have a great variety of information experience. They explore ideas and solutions more broadly, and they force you to think outside of the box. But this is happen when the team is very well managed, and when the team has the space to be themselves. Each member has the space to be themselves and to bring this cultural difference to put this on the table. So we talk a lot now this kind of concept of psychological safety in teams in general. For multicultural teams, psychological safety is much important than the homogeneous. No, I cannot say it's much important, but it's something that we need to create, because if you have some culture that, for example, can speak up easily, you have maybe another culture that is not happen. So how you manage this kind of thing? In the multicultural team, the sense of belonging take more time to appear. So the first thing is create this psychological safety in order to, in the process, because it's not automatically in the process, create that every person in the team feel with the sense of belonging and can bring their cultural aspect to the project or to the organization or to the objective of the team.
For us, it's also the first time, to be honest. It usually goes smoothly. Yes. Well, but anyways, people understand. That's technology.
And also, I said to you in our meeting, no, it's happened to, never happened to me, that this kind of thing.
For us neither, yes. But better not to attempt.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys.
No,
Okay.
fine.
So, okay. So, as you say, most of the problem when we face multicultural team we can have a good advantage from cultural differences. In fact, we need to have this mindset that cultural difference could be a good asset for the company, for the organization. But of course, when the team, or when we don't create this kind of culture of the team, the multicultural team, the problem are lack of cohesion, more conflict due to cultural bias issues, communication problem. You mentioned you have the challenge of communication. Form of cultural domination, where no dominate group feel excluded and voiceless. Difficulty in knowledge and understanding. How the people approach conflict, tension and hostility, lack of cooperation and motivation. This could be the challenge or the problem when we have multicultural teams that are not well managed. So I would like to show you a model. This model is how we approach cultural differences. So how people experience cultural differences. And I would like you to think about your situation in the team. When I will show the model, I would like you to think, okay, where I am personally in this model, when I think my team is in this model, the person of my team is in this model. Okay, so this model of intercultural sensitivity, again, is the experience, how we approach cultural differences. So the first, the model have 6 stages. The first stage is part of this kind of experience that we call ethnocentric experience. In ethnocentric experience, we see others from our cultural lens, our own experience, our cultural influences, our cultural values, our cultural belief. So in this kind of ethnocentric experience, I see the world by my glasses. Versus, and this part of etnocentric is because I am not in contact, frankly, with other cultures. I have a kind of ignorance about others. I see others, they exist, but my contact with them is superficial. Versus an ethno-relative experience is when we are able to recognize that the other cultures are valid and complex as my culture. And in ethno-relative experience, I can step back from my cultural background, my cultural lens, take time to understand what the other person needs, with the other cultural need, what their values of the other, what different from mine, what are their beliefs different from mine, what are their behavior at work or in any situation that different at mine. So I have a knowledge about the other who allow me to interact better, respecting the cultural differences, but I am not losing myself so we are creating, in the relative experience, we are creating with others. So let's see, the first stage in ethnocentric experience is denial. Here the people don't like cultural differences, don't like differences, or they are not aware. They have a big, for example, vision about the cultural differences. So we know European and different from Asian people, but we see Asian people also the same. So the Japanese, the same as Chinese or Korean, so we see this kind of, okay, a group. Or in Latin America, for example, all the Latin are the same. So we have big concept about differences, but we have not the more sensitivity or more detail or more specific knowledge about this kind of differences. So in denial, my cultural experience is the only real and valid. Maybe you have here this this kind of in Rome. In Rome, do as the Roman do. This is very typical sentence. When somebody enters in a team, somebody wants to adapt themselves quickly because they want to be integrated. The belonging is a human need, so they want to be integrated. So they start to do the same thing that the people do in this context, and they start to do the same behavior. Maybe they don't change their value, but they hide their personality or their identity because they want to be integrated. So this is kind of denial too, because assimilation to another culture is to deny, or the people they won't accept the difference, but the people also who want to be integrated deny themselves to be part of the group. And after this is very typical, is a stage of defense. We are aware of the cultural differences, but I defend what is important for me, what is in my cultural function. This is the typical reaction when you want to put a new process or a new way to work, and the people reject that because in my culture it's this way, it works well, and why we need to change. It's not important to change. So in this defense, we see people from us and them, we and them, and we try to defend the way we doing things in the organization or in the team. In defense also is a stage where we our interaction with others are shaped by our bias or the stereotype. So the brain have limited information about others, and we create reaction using this incomplete information with our bias or our stereotype. So this is a very typical mode of defense. And after we have another better, which is minimization. So in minimization, as the team, we try to focus in what is similar to us, in our common ground. We don't see the differences, so we see we have the same objective. We are always in the same boat, so we start to advance, trying to focus in our similarities. And this is a good point to start, because we start to create the relationship with others, this connection with what we are similar, but it's not the good state to stay, because we are in this moment, we are not taking account this cultural difference as an asset. In this ethnocentric experience, we are thinking, or we are experiencing cultural difference as a barrier in our interaction. Okay, so do you have question about? Okay, so ethnocentric experience, 3 stages: the denial, defense, and minimization. And ethno-relative experiences. The first thing in the ethno-relative experience is that I accept the people is different. I accept that is what it is. Not necessarily I need to be agree. I accept it this way. But in acceptance, I start to be curious, to be open to understand others. So I am open myself to learn about others. It's a part of starting cultural understanding. So here, as a leader, for example, I interest myself in how the people behave, because something important when we have a multicultural team, you have different. For example, we will focus in cultural background. You have people from different parts of the world, in general, our brain, or we have we see people as human beings and their personality. It's difficult to understand what is personality and what is culture. So when I am in acceptance, I bring in my observation and interaction with the people, okay, what is the cultural part of this person? What is the cultural part that he brings? It's not her personality or his personality, but it's something cultural. So in acceptance, I try to understand all in the cultural aspect. So I can create conversation about culture. Say, for example, I can say, Evie, what do you do? How do you take decision in your country? How the people face a meeting in your country? What is a good leader in your country or in your culture? So I start to have the good question to understand cultures or the other person's culture. And after we have an adaptation. An adaptation, we are more in the acceptance, we are more curious, we are trying to understand. And in adaptation, I recognize that this cultural difference could be an asset, and I try to take the better thing from these cultural differences. So if the first stage are more my awareness or my attitude to understand culture, here in adaptation, we are working together. So we are putting process in practice. So for example, okay, Joel have a good process in Netherlands, and maybe we can use this process combined with the process or other action from the other part of the world. So here we are creating synergy, we are creating complementarity, we are creating innovation. In this time, with the multicultural team flourish, it start to be very performance, as I said before. So here we are trying, it's not the kind of being, but also it's the way we do things in adaptation. And finally, in integration, the people who develop this experience from ethnocentric to ethno-relative in integration, the person is able to seek differences, seek situations, step back, have an observation, like to be in a balcony, observing the situation, and take the good solution, the good strategy, because the people have knowledge, they understand the need or the behavior from others. So here the person is trying to be aware that we can collaborate together, we can create a third culture. And in the team is here when you have the cultural organization, but every team, homogeneous and multicultural, have their own culture. Here we're creating this kind of third culture. It's not mine, it's not yours, it's our culture. So we create a new way to work together. We are putting in place new behavior as a team. We are creating new values for the team. So for example, we have our cultural values, but here we can create a cultural value for this team. So in this integration, we have created this culture for the team, accepting the differences and bringing new behavior to this new culture. Okay, so now this is for you. Think, okay, so here we're developing an ethno-relative experience, cultural competencies, openness, co-chiefing, attitude. So the idea is now that think about your current situation in your multicultural team. Where I position myself in this model relating to my interaction with my cultural team, in which state I think I am. And what are the indicators that tell me that I am in this position? Where do you see most people of the team are positioned in this model? Probably you have maybe people in different parts of the team, huh? But okay, try to identify, okay, this person is here, this person another stage. And personally, where you would like to be as a team in the next month, in which stage? Okay. So we will divide in group, and maybe you can share your experience of, around this question. Welcome back. So I would like to know what was the experience reflecting about this model and your multicultural team experiences. Somebody want to share an insight or something coming?
Maybe each team can have like a porte-parole or something. Someone who speaks on behalf of the team.
I really don't want to speak on behalf of the team. Sorry, I haven't asked the team for permission. But if I give maybe some sound bites from what we discussed, you know, if I look at the three of us that were in the team, we genuinely enjoy the experience of working in these multicultural teams. And depending on how many years you've been working in this team, your experience will obviously differ. So if you've been in these types of situations for a long period of time, I think you'll see the good side and the fun side. It kind of naturally happens for a while, but then you can see the not so fun side, the challenging side, where collaboration for some reason isn't working as well as it used to. And we started talking about why multicultural elements could be adversely affecting teamwork for a period of time. So if I were to pick one soundbite, the performance of a team or the level of collaboration can vary over time. Just because you think you've mastered this multicultural stuff at a particular point in time doesn't mean you're going to stay there. You could take a dip a month later. So yeah, it's very complicated stuff and very impactful and very important to try to engineer environments that help you stay in that performance part of the team development model.
Team, the rest of the team agrees, and of course they can add to that. Some of the things we mentioned were disparities in power balance, for example, in terms of like what type of contracts some people that are placed in certain places have versus perhaps the people that are more at the center or the organization, even though it's supposed to be decentralized or fairly distributed. Another thing that we mentioned was language barriers and concerns about, you know, what does becoming an international organization mean for the people that work at the organization, and how the language can be a barrier and also an indicator that you may, like how much of a barrier that is may become an indicator of where you sit in that model that we were discussing. And yeah, some of the other sort of like common threads was that this issue of like, you may think that you're someplace and then you realize that you're like in another, and it's not linear. It's not sort of like a progression. And once you've like gone into acceptance and you're never going to fall back into defense, but it's more sort of like, you know, up and down towards throughout like all that model. And you know, the difference between good days at the organization and not so good days, and days when people are not maybe at their best selves, maybe they're stressed, maybe they don't have the time to deal with the multiculturality today. So yeah, I think those are like some of the common themes that we had.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Julia. Yes, it's true. The model is not with the arrival and acceptance or staying acceptance and the integration and everything is solved. No, it's like maybe you can advance with some project with the team to a stage where create this new culture, or you are creating this new behavior, or you're creating impact, taking account of our cultural differences. But in other projects, in other situations, the people come back to the other stage, at the defense stage, or minimization. So it's a path to go ahead and to come back. Any else? So the idea in intercultural interaction is to bridge, and in this kind of ethnocentric to ethnorelative, to pass from the ethnocentric experience to ethnorelative. We have we explored the ethnocentric experience, and in general, I would like to show you the golden rule. The golden rule is something like that. That we hear, we are from our childhood, which we should treat others as we would like to be treated. And this is a kind of ethnocentric experience, because in the connection with other from me, it's about me and the other, but from my lens, from my expectation, from my point of view to see the world. And this is connected with we call in the cultural area emotional empathy. So this kind, I connect with the other because we have the same experience, or I think I have the same experience. But we have another empathy, which is the Platonian rule. The Platonian rule, we should treat others the way they want to be treated. And this is kind of cognitive empathy. And why cognitive? Cognitive is not rational in this sense, it's more understanding, knowledge, because I know how the people behave. I know what the people motivation are. I know the beliefs, and they know their expectations. I know the way they behave at work. This is the difference in ethnocentric experience. We focus more in emotional empathy, and we are in the relative experience. We focus more in cognitive empathy. So what we can do to pass from one side to another? Of course, when we have in defense, or we see the people, we are in defense sometime in this approach to the team or to the team member. It's important to have this conscious about our bias, our stereotype, what image that I have from the other culture. If I'm working, for example, now I am working with a company with French people and German, and they react, they know very well, because they think they know very well. And but when you start to go deeper, you see that, for example, the image that they have one culture from another is based in the stereotype they have. So it's important to understand and to be aware in what are my stereotypes in or bias that they have from the people from other cultures. So to pass from the defense, at least to minimization, to advance from defense, be conscious of that is very important. In defense, sometimes the people are not very exposed to the other culture. So exposition also is an important thing to develop or to create. And minimization acceptance. Sometimes in minimization, we are in this stage because we don't know how to work about cultural differences, or don't want to approach the cultural issues because could be something unpolitical correct. So we try to focus in more this kind of common ground and put aside cultural difference because we don't know how to approach it, or we don't know how to put the conversation or to understand others. So to pass from minimization acceptance, maybe create cultural encounter with your colleague. For example, if you have a team building, why not to focus team building in cultural aspect? Or everyone tell story about their myth or legend of the culture, or someone bring about a national dish or stories or something that help to create this kind of understanding. And why we have I don't know, prepare something around the cultural issue, put the cultural conversation in the conversation on the table. Share with your colleague about your culture. Oh, I like to do that. It's in Christmas time, or we do that. This now on our national festivities, and try to pass the mention also your cultural value. Why are important for you? Recognize your cultural value and to pass the message about that. And here, valorize the good practice from other groups. And here, as I said before, to create new process. And of course, how we detect the strength of each member of the group. What is the strength, cultural strength that the people can bring to the group? And for that, it is important to focus in the cultural dimensions. The cultural dimension, for example, we were talking with Anna. Anna said to me, maybe Latin are more Toltec people, so they can negotiate better. They can create a relationship with some culture because we are more focused in relationship than the task. But I said to her, okay, this kind of behavior helped me in my Latin context. It helped me a lot with people from the Arabian countries. It helped me a lot with people from Africa. But I noticed that my cultural style of communication is not work with Swiss people. Because when I arrived here the first time 20 years ago, I say, okay, I came with my Latin, kissing everybody, trying to be very talkative, and the people feel invited for me. So what I mean, knowing a little bit of this cultural dimension, how the people behave in this cultural dimension, communication style, leadership style, how the people approach or solve problems, how the people solve conflict in their culture. Asking this question helps you to understand the way that the people behave or what is important for them. So, for example, if somebody, Julia, say that, yeah, this kind of power distance, cultural approach power the different way. If you see, maybe in Netherlands, is much more horizontal way of approach power, and also are more consensus culture versus Latin America or Asian culture. We have more pyramidal kind of power, and the leader in both cultures are very different. The behavior of the leader in two cultures are different. I would like to share something that Joel is here. I work with a company in Chile that the Australian arrived in Chile they buy energy company in Chile and in Brazil. So when they arrived a group of Australian. They hired Chilean people to work in the company, and the group, the manager, for the Chilean was a shock because the Australian arrived, and they say in the meeting, okay, brainstorming about the things, how we can handle this. And the Chile was very surprised because the Chilean need somebody who say, okay, we will do that, who take the task. And it was a very cultural shock. And after, they were very happy working with Australia because they give them a lot of, how do you say, empower, ownership to approach the thing, and they were very happy. But the company was bought by a Chinese company. So China arrived. The Australian leave the company because they don't accept the Chinese style to leadership and everything, all this cultural behavior that works. So and now the Chileans are adapting to this kind of Chinese. So adaptation is something that we need to, is part of our cultural interaction. But for that, we need to know how we behave in this kind of dimension. And also, we need to be very cultural self-aware now, or self-aware, because we need to decide what we want to adapt, or what we can adapt, and what not. Okay, again, when creating this third culture, people are sharing, sharing value, sorry, sharing values and vision of the group team. Something important that you mentioned, the language, is true. Most of today, English is maybe the language of communication, but it's not only the language, it's the concept. So, for example, we assume sometimes that the same word is understood for everyone in the same way. So, for example, harmony. If we ask to you what you mean, what is the meaning for harmony, maybe we have different definition, and could be maybe something that we are agree as a Western country. But if you go to Asia and you ask for harmony, they will give you a completely different meaning. So one tip, if you want, it's not a solution, but the tip is when you are putting a concept in a meeting, try to understand what the people understand from this meaning. And it's the same when you put values in a group and you want to create new values in your team, ask them what is the action that this value reflects. What is not the meaning, it's the action. Okay, when we are being respectful, when it's respect is one of the values of the group. In terms of action, what means respect? What mean what mean not to be respect or respectful? So this kind of thing is I don't know in English is I say is the construction the word or the meaning of the word. This is important to create. Julia, you have your question, I think.
Yeah, it was more of a comment actually, because one of the initial reactions that we got when we started talking more explicitly about multiculturality in our teams was that people also don't want to be reduced to their culture. So we had a bit of pushback when we were trying to, we were just sharing about a story that had happened, and a tool that we had used to bridge like a multicultural difference. And then somebody else that was not part of that experience, but that still is someone that is part of our team, was very reluctant, for example, to sort of what we were learning from that experience, because she was like, I'm not the Brazilian culture, I'm me, you know, and you have to learn how to treat me, not to have these ideas of, okay, in this culture, this is how things go, so this is how I should go about it. Because I think, for example, that we have a lot of Brazilians in our team, and I think, for example, that the type of Brazilian that we have may also not be the stereotypical Brazilian, or like they may be people that are reacting to some of the things, for example, that you were mentioning about Latin American culture, for example, being more hierarchical versus let's say the Netherlands or Australia. But then the people that we have, I think, are more in the reactive side of that. So like they don't necessarily want that hierarchy, and that may create, you know, different tensions for them and for us. But I think that, you know, we also cannot assume that they may go even further in the non-hierarchical side because they are reacting to a very hierarchical or a more hierarchical society. So yeah, just to sort of like perhaps flag that, you know, we had that little, it was all like a good-natured over dinner. It was not like a conflict or anything, but it was just funny to see that their perspective was very different to what we were exposing.
So sometimes people are afraid to be connected with their culture because others have image and bias and stereotype from the culture. I don't want to be connected with this bias. So the people that personally they don't know how to deal with the bias. Maybe something, a tip again, it's not a solution. It's like, okay, for example, ask okay, in your culture or in your group when you are in the meeting, what works well, what is, or for this solution, how do we approach in Brazil, for example, in a company in Brazil, or this kind of situation? So it's not the person, is more asking from the group for the solution for the other perspective. Maybe could be, I don't know, it helps. Joel.
Yeah, it's kind of like a similar thing, and it relates to your Australian person traveling over to Chile to manage a Chilean organization or an organization with Chileans in it. And, you know, I had a similar experience where we had an Argentinian in the team. This is about 5 to 10 years ago. And I brought in this very, you know, just through my leadership style and my cultural background, a very non-hierarchical approach to managing the team, which is what your story was about. You know, let's brainstorm. How do we do this together? I value your, you know, your input in this way. And I saw him really struggle to adapt because his Argentinian culture had a much more hierarchical approach than, say, what I was used to from my culture. But he could rationalize that this was a really cool thing to do. So I was, you know, trying to encourage him to treat me in a certain way, which wouldn't work back in Argentina or in certain parts of that culture. So I saw the struggle he genuinely had to adapt, even though he could rationally go, this is a good thing to do. So of course, over time, you adapt. And then of course, you know, in the UN or in Chile, where organizations get bought and sold by different, you know, people from different countries. In China, I think if you were to measure it, they have an even more hierarchical approach than what they have in Argentina, maybe even what they have in Chile. So the poor Chilean team that has had to adapt to an Australian style and then readapt to a hierarchical style that, you know, maybe is prevalent in China, just to me describes huge amount of pain that is not easy to adapt in any direction. So pretty tough going. That's why I was kind of laughing during that story. I thought, oh my God, that poor Chilean team, what else do they have to be subjected to? First the Australian, now the Chinese. That's so unfair.
Yeah, it's true. And talking about adaptation, this is, as I said before, when I say to my coachee when they're working with multicultural issues and team, you need to be aware, what do you want to adapt? What is important to you? In fact, we need to think that behind every behavior that we have, there are a belief or value shape this behavior. So in multicultural, when we are being direct in our communication, because we learn to be direct in our culture, but there's something behind a behavior and a belief that shape this behavior. So sometimes this belief or values are very strong and we cannot adapt. So for example, working with more something that we call lineal culture. Lineal culture is Switzerland, Germany, Austrian, some people that, and even for the language, they are more direct in their communication because the German language is very focused in terms of language. It's not like Latin language that we can start to talk, we don't finish the sentence and the people understand what we will say. No, in German it's not the case. So this creates a mindset of more direct communication. And it's very difficult for them to try to be contextual or more indirect. In this case, when you are aware that you cannot change this behavior, you need to explain at the team. You need to explain, and when you explain why, for example, Joy, if you explain why for you this kind of horizontal approach is important for you, the people enter in this kind of acceptance. Okay, and acceptance, I understanding. So most of our misunderstanding in cultural misunderstanding is because we don't explain why. When you explain why, everything starts to be more, less heavy. We don't know the why. We come back to assumptions, you know, and our assumptions. So, okay, I think we observe. We passed the time. I don't know if we are Q&A. Maybe it would be nice if you put, or maybe you can say what we are taking with you, or write in the chat.
Or I can share. No, it just it was very nice to know that there is actually a scientific theory behind something which appeared to be like very hard to grasp, just a quite empirical thing. And it was very interesting to look actually that there has been studies about how teams adapt to, and how there are different ways to adapt and kind of to face this challenge of functioning in the multicultural team. So, and that was a learning for me. So in my head now it's kind of a kind of I'm merging what I learned from today's session from the past experience of being like for 12 years in a teaching in an international university where I observed all these cultural differences. So kind of it's getting connected together. So that was the learning which I had. Yeah. Which is thanks a lot. It was a very useful session. Of course, there are lots of practical questions. I don't know which pop up in my head, but I wouldn't take time. Perhaps let people speak if someone has other comments or things to share. Or if not, then we perhaps can wrap up the session and kind of let people reflect a bit more on what they have learned, which I think is actually. Yeah, so then just from our side to say a big thank you to Veronica for sharing her knowledge and experience with us, and thank you for everybody who joined and who participated. We will follow up as we usually do with sharing the slide deck and whatever has to be shared. Perhaps even the chat has. Joel wished to understand. Yeah, so we will share it anyway so that you have it, and we'll share the recording as well with you. And if you feel like connecting with Veronica more and ask more of your questions, please feel free to do so. You have access to her profile on your CRMs, so it's easy to do. Just reach out. And then thanks once again, and seeing you. Looking forward to seeing you in the next sessions. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks a lot.